Live from Los Angeles. Welcome back to Good Morning, LaLa. And it's an absolute honor to be having this Friday feeling conversation with the incredible authors, Justin and London, of The Awakened Woman's Guide to Everlasting Love. Welcome to the show. We're so excited and honored to be able to celebrate you, celebrate the life inside of you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling very big.
Oh, you're looking absolutely
You look amazing.
gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yeah, we love the conscious conversation of dating, love, and relationships. It seems like it's one of the most fun ways of having this conversation. So tell us a little bit about your own personal journey in meeting each other and having this book come out and the whole process for you guys.
Okay, well, you know, I was one of those women in my 20s and 30s who just kicked butt in career. I won an Emmy. I achieved financial freedom through passive income. It was like I was the manifesting machine. I had the Midas touch in everything but love. It was not working for me. And so it really started to feel like a desert inside. You know, there was just all of the accomplishments, they only did so much, and something else was hungry. And so at one point in my life, I just stopped and I said, I want to unlock this love equation. And I started to look deeper than the average. There's a lot of, you start looking into love, there's advice everywhere, right? But I started to go into the deeper spiritual realms, and I learned the art of surrender. And that was the game changer, because all of my life I was using that really like go energy to create, but that didn't work so good with the kind of men I liked. And so I started to cultivate the parts of me that could relax into the moment, feel pleasure, surrender into being led, those things. And immediately,
which is not easy as a working woman, as a modern working woman who's career driven, to absolutely surrender. I mean, you mentioned in your book that you don't have to be bulletproof, right?
Yeah.
To let down that guard, to let somebody else in, how do you even begin to do that?
I call it energetic agility, because when you go to work, certain skills work at work, like being trustable, not being emotional, being very level-headed, leading people, being having vision and strong will. But if you take that into a date, you're going to attract either somebody who wants to be led, like you're the breadwinner now, or you're going to butt heads with the kind of person who could lead you, because only really one person can lead at a time, right? So what I learned how to do, it's not easy, it's the hardest thing in the world, is take all of that cultivation of my more masculine principle to work, and then in the drive home,
she's in the passenger seat in the drive. So this is true. It's so subtle, these dynamics we don't realize, but if you're driving the car, if you're in the driver's seat, you're actually playing the masculine role in that moment, and the passenger's in the passenger seat, and that's a metaphor for every moment in our lives. So if you're in the kitchen, you're saying, hand me that plate, give me this, get me that, go take out this. You're actually playing the masculine role in that moment. And if we're not aware of it, that begins to affect our relational dynamic. So what we talk about is first being aware of, how am I relating to my partner? You know, am I bringing my masculine or my feminine right now?
So I have a question about that, because for me, a lot of times bringing that masculine energy, I equate that to showing my self-worth. Let me show up in this moment, show you what a badass I am, and that I can do this and I can do that, whatever, and I bring this energy because I'm trying to prove I'm worth it. Respect me, admire me, appreciate me, rather than just sitting back in that.
it's so interesting to bring that up, because ultimately what we're in is a gender fluid culture. Women realize you don't have to have certain genitals to run with the big boys, right? And men are tenderizing their hearts. They're allowing themselves to be more permeable. They don't have to be so brave all the time. But what we realize when we look at what creates sexual attraction, it's opposites. So basically, if you are attracted to a very alpha strong man and you show up and prove how you match him, you just prove to him you're exactly the same. Which he might want to make a business deal with you or loan you money.
Which can work. Has its own purposes.
You know, everything has a purpose.
Transactional relationship instead of transcending. Yes.
Precisely. But you know, now you guys are kind of occupying the same sexual pole. Whereas it would be so interesting if you went, you know, I have this love-driven part of me. What if I let her come out?
Oh, but that's the girl that gets hurt.
That's
right?
the girl that gets hurt. And this half of our book is really teaching, how do you re-embrace your vulnerability from the queen? How do you find that vulnerable, permeable place, but not totally lose yourself? You know, you still have sovereignty.
So I think what's interesting is that yes, yes, and yes to all this. Yes, we want to become vulnerable. Yes, we want that feminine side of us. Yes, we don't want to get hurt. How do we find somebody that's so open to say, I'm ready to be awakened also and heal this, like, right? So not everybody's in that conscious state.
True. Well, the biggest thing is you attract your reciprocal. So if you think about, if you wanted, let's say, like a man who could lead you, what we call alpha, so on the farthest end of that masculine principle would be alpha. He's living life essentially fearlessly as consciousness, right? Mindfulness, awareness, the ability to transcend the moment. He's looking for his equal and opposite over here on the opposite pole, which is someone who's living life fearlessly as love light. I'm willing to be the light of your life. I'm the color in your black and white world. And that's what creates those opposites that create the attraction. So what I encourage women to do is look at all the ways life beat that part of you out of the picture and take it back.
So I love that you say that, because a lot of the work spiritually is a counterintuitive process. Instead of trying to be that, you just basically heal what needs to be healed.
Exactly.
And then the authentic space comes back.
Well, and you more than most know that that is who you are. Like it's this bubbling spring that nothing and no one could ever take away from you. But you can take it away from you if you guard against it, if you harden up, if you don't show it, if you get afraid. And this happens on such subtle levels. I call it another brick in the yoni wall. It's true. And then we have this like big brick wall right in front of everything that makes us stardust.
I love that.
You guys have some fantastic like exercises and questions and tips and tricks in the book, and I was wondering if you could share just a couple of those things. Where can a person start? They want to become, that light. Where do they start?
A lot of the work that we teach is very yogic in nature. So being aware of body postures and embodiment is a huge piece of it. So bringing awareness to body, just like you would in a yoga class, the way that you stretch and open your body, you're going to do it intimately too. Because a lot of these yoga practices, through breath and movement, are designed to liberate the clench. So this isn't about like booting up to become something you're not. This is very much about removing layers of the way that life kind of makes us very rigid. We calcify ourselves because the world is, it's tough out there. And we need to calcify to go be in the world and be successful in business. So these practices teach us how to unwind those tensions and get back to a very vulnerable, authentic way of relating.
I love that.
And is this something that people can do sort of on their own? Is it best if they're led through this, by an expert? What's the best way for a person who's saying, I'm just not meeting the kind of people out there in the world that I want to meet, and maybe I'm not being the kind of person, that I want to be or that I need to be in order to attract those people? Do they go to an expert? Of course, they read the book. But do they do an expert or just sort of do it on their own?
There are communities, we have a yoga of intimacy community that we lead, and we do workshops, and those spaces give you hands-on experience of people interested in this, and you get to experience it and learn it firsthand. But otherwise, you can absolutely begin these practices on your own. The book is enough instruction to engage in it. And London has some amazing practices specifically for women to help them get started.
I love that.
Yeah, and you can download the practices. We're a big believer in the embodied experience, and so when you're guided, like literally cell by cell, on how to hold yourself, you train yourself to literally reveal more of yourself. I always say, a professional athlete can't learn the layup in the playoffs.
True that.
So,
True that.
right. So a lot of it is, like you asked what our morning practice was, I'm practicing for the moment that I get his attention. I'm practicing to let go of everything yesterday that hurt so bad, I hardened up. I mean, the truth is, life hurts. It really does. Every day we're getting number and number or more and more overstimulated. And so half of the work is to just come back into that essence that you are when there's nothing on top of it.
On here you say there's 3 pillars of everlasting love: presence, polarity, and devotion. Tell us about those three.
So when you're looking at what does it take to sustain intimacy over a long time, you touched on this earlier, which is it's one thing to have a 3-month heated passion and then it kind of dwindles and then the next one comes in. But you want to be like a well-woven rug where every challenge brings you closer and you can lean into that person. You can trust that they'll be there. They'll be your champion. They get to know you well enough to know you better than you know yourself. And so our book is really not about how to have like a short-term fling because biology will take care of that. Our book is about when the biology runs out, what do you do then?
So great.
Yeah, and those are the 3 pillars. So presence. Our culture, there's an epidemic of not being present. You know, we go somewhere, we're all on our phones. We get together with our loved one, we're looking around, our attention span keeps shortening, and all of this is affecting that intimate moment. So one of the key things that we're cultivating, always, Justin and I, is how to land all the way in the moment with each other. This is what has you start to feel met. Like when he looks all the way into your heart, and you don't have to feel like you got to be anyone but what you are. Half the time I burst into tears when this happens because it's like touching something that doesn't get touched in our culture.
Let's just talk. I want you to finish this, but I want to touch on this before we run out of time. Do you mind if we talk about your age difference and all that stuff? Because
No,
I
I
think it's
don't
really
mind.
inspiring personally.
Sure.
So you're 15 years older, correct?
14.
Depending on the time of
14,
year, it's 14 or 15.
And you would never know because you guys look amazing, and
Thank you.
but I do think it's an interesting thing because I'm sure you had to overcome some stigmas and things like that and kind of become vulnerable in some way. So I want to know a little bit more about like how you met and how that came about because I mean, there's so many women. I have so many girlfriends out there that just almost have given up on love. I mean, literally, they're like, okay, whatever, let's just hang out with the girls and do some business. Like, this whole dating thing's not working out. So, like, you give us hope. Like, you know what I mean? Like, really and truly, you give so many women hope that are like, they've had their careers, they're now like, they're opening up their heart so they can bring in whatever that looks like. How did that come about?
It came about by not listening to my logical mind.
So many good things come about that way. Almost all good things come about that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really came about. It came about by me when I started doing this work, I realized that you can love on the surface and you can love in the depths. And I'm 47 years old.
Wow, you look amazing.
That's only because the hormones of the pregnancy.
Right
But
now.
I'm just like everyone else. Like I'm conscious that I have wrinkles. Justin was dating all of these women when I met him, and if I had even thought about worthiness, I would have disqualified myself. But because of the spiritual work I do in intimacy, I know what I'm bringing to the table. I'm bringing love light, and that's ageless. I'm bringing depth. I'm bringing the ability to withstand adversity and still be your champion.
You're a lucky man, Justin. Let's just get this straight.
I know.
Well, the truth is, you're that way too, right? We're women who have lived. We've gone through pain and opened again. And I knew that's what I was bringing him, to help him become a better man.
Such a beautiful, beautiful point, and I think it's something that needs underscored. And I love that you've written a book about it, that you offer, services and workshops and everything, because it's so needed. This idea that I think a lot of us fall into this belief that call it maybe erotic capital, that it can't be increased or enhanced, and that it can't convert into other things, and that the spiritual capital and intellectual capital, all these things don't feed that. And then it's an entire capital portfolio that you have, and all of it can feed into that erotic capital, right?
Yes.
Yes. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I think that's kind of what I hear you saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If I was thinking that my erotic capital was basically my surface radiance, again, I would disqualify myself. But because I have a practice that connects me to this place that is so much juicier than anything I could put on my skin, when I'm sitting in front of Justin, I'm offering him that in devotion. This is that third pillar. I'm giving that to him for his sake. And my erotic capital is really dedicated to how am I affecting this man, and could his day go better because of the love that I know. And when you start getting out of your own stories, your own insecurities, your own twists and all the ways you've been hurt and everything bad that everyone said to you, you know, all of that literally turns you into like a troll. Even if you're pretending you're not, you're like energetically holding this like, I'm not going to show you any of the things that make me shameful.
Aww.
But when you understand what your capital really is, you relax all of that. Your heart begins to lead. Your body is soft and conducting energy. You talked about water. All of your cells are connected to the magic of the universe. A man sits in front of that and he's like, this feels good.
Totally. It's such an interesting point. And, you know, I remember reading years ago these studies that basically found, and this isn't going to be a bit of a simplistic way of saying it, but for me, you know, all these studies basically informed me that happiness, that the happier you were, the more attractive you were rated by everyone. The opposite sex seems that people rate you more attractive. And so when people say to me, oh, well, you know, what do you think, you know, guys find attractive in women? I'm always like, it's the energy. That's so, I think, you know, I think it's so underrated. You know,
Yeah,
absolutely.
filters can't do that. Let's
Not
just
so
get
much.
this straight.
Not so much.
You know, and coming from the man's perspective, it's not just about going along to get along with her vision of love and her vision of romance, because, you know, I was a very spiritual person before I met London, but she pulled me into the spiritual intimacy landscape. And once I started to experience that work, I finally realized, wow, this spiritual exploration I've been doing, committing myself my whole life on my own, I can actually share that with someone. That doesn't have to be a solo journey at all. And once that was connected, my whole life changed. And I began directing my spiritual practice towards an intimate one. And through that, the gift that I received from London is she's my muse. She fuels my purpose. She makes me push myself harder than I would on my own. I would fall into my own laziness in certain ways. And she doesn't do it by reprimanding me or shaming me at all. She does it through inspiration.
She's a queen.
And that's what the practice has allowed us to continue to sustain now for nearly a decade.
Wow.
Amazing. You guys, so incredibly beautiful. I mean, honestly, I am so touched by your work. It's so on point and so needed. And for me, I need that. I feel like there's something in me that has died a little bit inside. And I have an incredible partner in my life, but we still like, I feel like this is the journey that I really want to be on within myself, and opening up that, you know, vulnerable place and getting this more in touch with the feminine. That it's just our culture just kind of has died that down because we've had to just put these strong coats on to survive. So I'm looking forward to reading the book. I'm looking forward to maybe even taking one of your courses. Who knows? So yeah, where can people find you?
LondonAngelWinters.com. London.
Is that your real name?
That is my real name.
We're all about names around here.
I texted my mom. I was like, Mom, I can't think of anything better. What do you got for this girl? Because I have no idea. Yeah, so everything's on my website. And I also have an online women's circle where you can get like tons of information regularly that helps you take this book, kind of like you were saying, takes this book and puts it actually into your life.
Love that.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
so
welcome.
much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
No,
much.
guys,
Thank you. We'll be
thank you
back
so
with more
much.
on Good Morning La La Land.